Good afternoon, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I am Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And Harlem Network News, as you know, is a new media platform. Now, not so new. We started 3 years ago, right on Resurrection Sunday, and we're still here. And it's been really quite a journey and an important process. Often things that happen in our community, in Harlem and the Harlems of the world, just are not covered or they're misrepresented. So we are doing an essential service here, and we just are continuing on. And we had planned to do this Harlem Network News for a while, but when COVID came along and Black folks were walking around Harlem and saying, I'm Black, I can't get it, we knew we had to jump in the deep water and just make sure that people were clear. So that's why I say essential service. We are saving lives. Today at Harlem Network News, and we're on YouTube and Facebook, Instagram. We broadcast on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. But today we are honored to have with us our New York State Assembly member, and that is in the person of Reverend Al Taylor. And he is also running for City Council in District 9. But before we go forward, I just want to send up prayers. Many ancestors have really been marching out this weekend time. And Reverend Al Taylor's father transitioned, and may he rest in peace and power. And it is in the person of Henry, AKA Frank Taylor. So we just send up our prayers. We send up our prayers for Reverend Al Taylor and the entire family. And we are just so grateful with everything going on. Reverend Al Taylor's father's homecoming, and we're pre-recording, will be this Saturday at the Abyssinian Baptist Church, and he will be saluted. And of course, I mean, we've just had so many losses. Eunice Newkirk, great soloist at Abyssinian, Kwame Braithwaite, photographer, documenting all of Harlem. And then of course, Harry Belafonte, Al's father, and also Alton Maddox, the lawyer, who was, on the Tawana Brawley case. So it's been a lot and a journey, but Al is here. Al, Reverend Al, Assembly Member Al, I just, you've gathered the strength, you're there in Albany doing everything you have to do, getting ready for your father's homecoming, and you got to get it right. And now today, you're going to talk with us about your journey and quest for City Council. And I know that you will be participating in a forum with the other people that are candidates for City Council. And I believe it's going to be Dr. Yusef Salaam, Assembly Member Inez Dickens, and of course yourself, the Honorable Reverend Al Taylor, Assembly Member. And there is another candidate, and I understand she will not be participating, and that is our sitting City Council person, Christian Richardson Jordan. And this completes, we're hoping that our City Council person will come on, but this is our series on City Council candidates. And so far, Harlem Network News has interviewed Dr. Yusef Salaam, Assembly Member Inez Dickens, and now the Honorable Assembly Member Reverend Al Taylor. And we're pretty much asking all of the candidates the same questions with a little tweaking, because we really want you to be an educated voter. So Reverend Al, our prayers are with you once again.
Thank you.
And if you would just share who you are and whose you are. And thank you, Reverend. I gotta thank you, because really you are one of those initiators of Harlem Network News. You help get all the public officials on there. So I can't thank you enough. You help kick it off. So you are.
Thank you so much. Peace and blessings. I am always glad to be here with you, Sister Terry. It didn't seem like it was 3 years ago, but it was right in the midst of what was going on with the COVID-19. And back then, just barely 3 years ago, there was so much in the area of unknown. What was happening? Where were people getting their information? What was the source of the validity of what they were getting? For you to step in and have a space where people could tune in and listen has been inspirational, and it's definitely a necessity that we needed at the time. On Sundays, is it Sundays at 4 o'clock or something like that?
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
it airs Sundays
yeah.
at
Oh,
4. Yeah,
yeah. I
and
was like,
now
wow, you were doing
initially
it.
we were going live, and during COVID that was really critical. But now we are pre-recording, usually within a few days of the Sunday at 4 o'clock. And of
Okay.
course, it's on our YouTube channel, so people can, pull into our YouTube channel at any time and listen to it and copy the link and do all of what needs to be done. So thank
Well,
you.
certainly. No, thank you to you and your team that makes this happen. Thank you for an opportunity to be here. I am, as you mentioned earlier, Assembly Member Al Taylor, pretty much raised in Harlem. And I spent some time on a farm where I was born in North Carolina, but I was educated here in public schools in New York City.
Mhm.
I attended PS 123, which is 140th in 8th Avenue, or Frederick Douglass for the new arrivals in Harlem.
Okay.
I attended Frederick Douglass IS 10, 149th Street and 7th Avenue, aka Adam Clayton Powell, for the new arrivals.
Mhm.
So I've pretty much been here. Brandeis, George Washington High School. Took a turn in my early on in life, ended up in a situation where I could have done better, not using good God-given and parent inspirational sense,
Mm, mm.
and found myself incarcerated, or on my way to being incarcerated. And I
Wow.
met then Judge Bruce Wright, Turn on Loose
Mm.
Bruce. So
All
he
right.
gave me an opportunity to do something. He saw something in me, honestly. I didn't see in myself for several years later, but it allowed me to join the military at 18 years of age without a high school diploma and become a military police officer. That means
Wow.
badge wearing, patrol car carrying, weapon carrying, nightstick, and all of that. At 18, I graduated boot camp on my 19th birthday, went to school for about 9 weeks, and then came out and went to Arizona, where I served the military for 3.5 years as a military police officer. I got my high school diploma, a GED, while I was in Germany because I
Okay.
didn't have one at the time I entered. Came home and I learned the value of education. I learned the value just living life and seeing it from a different perspective, spending almost 2 years in Arizona, another year and a half in Germany, and you got to meet different people. And that black face, that black person has a voice. They have a imprint that when they arrive in a scene somewhere, you are never forgotten. You are greater than the sum total of sometimes what
Wow.
you believe.
Yes.
So yes. So my self-esteem was built, because in my neighborhood, people were dying for less. So I'm excited and glad to be here. I joined the military, came home, and I received my bachelor's in communication at
Okay.
City at CUNY, City University of New York. I met my fantastic wife there. So I tell
Okay.
people CUNY was instrumental in me getting my career started, my
Mm.
family, and my wife. So CUNY has been very good to me. I stand strong and support higher education. I support education as a whole, and parents should have an option for that. But it's a game changer. What you know and what you accomplish can never be taken away from you. It's a tool that will take you to the highest mountain peak if used correctly, and we cannot squander it away. I am glad to be here today. I am a candidate for the 9th Councilmatic District. I am currently a assembly member representing the 71st Assembly District, which is Harlem, Washington
Okay.
Heights, and Inwood. I'm
All
in my
right.
6th year, going into my 7th term, and I'll stop and breathe and let you bring me back in.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Assembly Member Reverend Al Taylor. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And we are in our third candidate with our candidate series, and that is in the person of Reverend Al Taylor. So you shared, and I'm going to jump off the questions a little bit, but what what does the city council really do? And what are some of the items on the table in city council? And why do you think that it's important? Why did you choose to run as a candidate for city council when you are currently in the assembly? What is the motivation? Why? And what are the ramifications of that?
Well, Terry, thank you so much. That's a great question. Why am I getting into this race, and what are the things that city council can do? There are a lot of resources. So we know that there are 3 levels of government. There's the city, state, and federal. So I currently serve on the state level. So when we're impacting legislation, it hits the state on a broad, it hits the city, but it's statewide. The impact is statewide. Here in New York City, I'm running in the 9th Councilmatic District, Terry, because I believe there are resources, valuable resources that need to be delivered to our community that were left on the table. There is the inability, I believe, in this current administration in the 9th Councilmatic District, where there is a failure to utilize and bring people to the table. Now, we may not always agree, and that's okay, but we cannot be disagreeable, and we cannot walk away from situations and circumstances that will create opportunity for others, whether it's housing, whether it's employment, and whether it may be funding for your non-for-profit organization. So, for example, with city council, there is certain amount of discretionary funds.
Yes,
And
discretionary funds.
that budget, I want to hear from my community at large. How do you think best we could spend some of this money so that you have some buy-in on what's happening and there's accountability on my part? But I'm hearing from the resident that has not happened in this place. I don't want to spend too much time talking about what has not happened.
Absolutely, no.
But I want to talk about what I bring and the leverage that I hope to have as a sitting assembly member. I am able to run and I still maintain my seat until I win this election, so I don't lose anything. And when I entered the race because I believe valuable resources were not being brought here to this 9th Councilmatic District that could be here, and making sure that we're reaching every aspect of this district, whether it's on the east side, whether it's Central Harlem or the northern part of Harlem, because collectively, working with my current state legislators, working with those on the federal level, as well as some of the colleagues in city council, and as I have worked and continue to work with our mayor, bringing all of those things together. So it's not me in a vacuum. We need housing. We need to make sure that we're bringing economic opportunities to our community, and education, as I mentioned earlier, is paramount. Our young boys and girls need to be able to dream that they can accomplish anything and then have the resources and the tools to get there. That's why I'm running.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And just another part of the question, if you win this city council seat, what happens to your assembly seat? And I'm asking that because it's really important that our voters are educated and they know what's going on. We're going to do a whole series on voting, but I just want to have you answer that because I know it's ranked voting.
That's great.
That's another.
Yes. So I'll speak the ranked choice, but what will happen here, when I win in June, there will be a primary. That's the primary. And in November, there's a general election. So I would be taking office the 1st of January 1st, 2024. My seat becomes vacant at that point. And when my seat becomes vacant, it would be filled in a special election. So the next election that's due for the assembly, the state electeds, would take place in June of 2024. So the governor has to announce a special election. That special election, you will get county committee members in the 71st Assembly District, close to 200 of them. They'll come together and they will have options of whomever it is that has decided to enter into that race. And they will decide, that vote will decide which one gets the Democratic nod. They get that nod, they go on the ballot, the special election. That special election could take place possibly in March, depending on when the governor calls it. And then that person, once they win, would begin to run again, because in June, there's an election for everybody in that seat. So they would have a temporary run. And ideally, you want someone that's sustainable, that can hold understands the community, because now the community at large is going to vote for them. Now, I want to slip over to the ranked choice voting, which is extremely
Okay.
important.
Okay.
I believe I'm working from this Terry. I believe that it's going to be a low turnout. So the margin that we're talking about is possibly about 8,000 voters, give or take.
Okay.
I want to be able to secure a little more than a third of that. Give me about 5,500 and I win. I win because my base takes me there. But also, if you're going and you are a diehard for any one of those other candidates, and you know that's your first choice, God bless them, God bless you. Make
Okay.
Al Taylor your number 2, and that's how I win. So if you're going in and you're voting for brother Dr. Youssef, and you say that's my guy, God bless you, I'm saying make your second guy Al Taylor. And if you're going for Assemblywoman member Inez Dickens, you say, oh man, I love that Harlem flavor, then make Al Taylor your second Harlem flavor. And that's how my path to victory will happen. I've gotten the endorsement of sitting Senator Cordell Clear, who represents this district.
Okay.
And I also have the endorsement of Assembly Member Eddie Gibbs, who represents that district. And those are the two stakeholder elected folks in that space. So I'm off to a great start, and I'm encouraged and inspired to just run a little bit further.
Okay, I love it. And this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom. We're here with Assembly Member Reverend Al Taylor. What are some of the key issues that must be addressed in our community? And how within the confines, contours of the city council will you be able to address them? Because we have a lot of issues and a lot of concerns. I mean, poverty, unemployment, drugs, drug addiction, crime, housing, housing people can't afford. So many things, cleanliness, the schools, our education system, the cultural attitudes of our young people, how to shift that, develop that. So if you could just address some of those major glaring issues, maybe the ones you think are most critical, and how you can approach change.
Well, thank you, Terri Wisdom from Harlem Network News. I want to throw that in there. You've already identified. So for me, and each pocket could look a little bit different, but overall, the housing we're in dire straits for housing, affordable housing, area medium income, which says the area medium income for those people is attached to Westchester and Bergen County when you're talking about Harlem. So we know what's in Bergen County and we know what's in Westchester when it comes to the income. And it's slightly more, not slightly, a lot more than a lot of the average folks that were living in Harlem. So we need to make sure that when we're building housing, such as the 145 project on 145th Street, we want to make sure that the people that are at the table that are driving the narrative understand who needs to live here, who's here already, and how do we maintain that? So collaboration, bringing city and state and federal subsidies so that you can make it available. Because one of the things, Terry, it is housing, it is employment. So where you have a team, a couple working and doing well, they can't afford to live here. So they're living in Pennsylvania, driving to New York to work and then going back home. Or they're living in Pennsylvania and driving back here. So we have to have real in-depth, deep pocket affordability for the folks to make sure that we're not flipping our neighborhood. There's been a mass exodus of Blacks leaving the state of New York, and Harlem has bore the brunt of a lot of those. So how do we keep them? Give them housing, making sure that their children have a great place to get educated in a safe community. So as you know, I started Man Up in Harlem almost 14, 15 years ago. And it was a prayer walk that people looked at and said, well, that's not going to make a difference. In 4 years, we were able to stop gun violence, and we didn't do anything physical. It was our presence and others believing the narrative that they can live better and do better. And we were able to see crime drop in that community. So I think when it comes to safety, it's going to require public safety. It's going to require a collaboration of community workers, and everybody has a role to play. It can't just be street corner resources. It can't just be Terri Wisdom giving it out here. What are we willing to do and roll up our sleeves and get engaged in the process so we have to be accountable across the board. And I think people want to get involved. So on the city level, I would be able to spend more time in the city, working closer with more of the not-for-profits that are there. And as I mentioned earlier, making sure that we're funding them where we can, because we're not talking Rockefeller money. We're talking about, can you put 10,000 over here? Can you put 5,000 over there? Because it's a game changer. And we know when our young people are engaged in something separate, something from just standing on the corner, it's life transforming. Because I stood on the corner, I did all the crazy things that I was told not to do, and that got me into trouble. And we got to direct our young people in other places, but also, Terry, hear them and listen to them. Partnering with Commissioner Howard with the Division for Youth, and what are the opportunities, what are the options that are there? Tonight, you young folks, do you know that when you apply for some of you have a priority over the other folks that are applying, simply because there's a set aside? Did you know that there's something that's there that helps you with homelessness? Because so a lot of stuff is just getting information out there and over and over and over again, and working side by side with folks and stakeholders of the community.
Okay. Just in the scope and the scale here in Harlem, deviating a little bit, where are we? We know that we've gone through different transitions in the city council. You know, Bill Perkins stands out. Inez Dickens has been a city council person. We have Christian Richardson Jordan now. And there's so much that has happened. Obviously, we're post-pandemic, but where are we, and how impactful with the mayor and all of the other city representatives, the borough president, what kind of weight does a city council person have? Because it's very concerning to me, and I think to everyone else, when we hear the median income or the median, apartment pricing is $5,000. That's concerning. And it is said off the tip of the tongue like it's nothing. Or, big developers are coming in and saying, oh, we're going to, do this, and we're only going to give this measure. This is very concerning. How, from the city council, can you push back on that? Can you actually, garner and push back and make change?
Absolutely. I think when you look at the 145 project, again, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because the power to say no to it shut it down. So there is power. It speaks there. But I think we want to use that wisely and make it beneficial to our community. As a city council member, I would have not let that deal leave. Whatever it looked like, we would have to keep banging at it and banging at it. And it's not Al Taylor at the table banging that gavel, saying this is how I want it. But we look at ACCI, Harlem Community Congregation of Change Improvement, I think it was. They're responsible for over 2,000 units being redeveloped when our communities were just, it was a blight. They developed this. They worked in partnership. So bring partnership like that for people that are here in Harlem that have done the work, making sure that this project at 145 or any other project that's happening within my district would make sure that we're bringing stakeholders that understand, and they'll be able to say, no, walk that back. Because I would be a fool to sit at a table and try to negotiate every entity of developing a project when I've never built a toy house. It doesn't make sense. Bring the experts that are here, that have proven themselves to be stakeholders, to do the job with us, so that we can turn around and say, this is how we won. This is what we did. And continue to do those type of things in collaboration. There was another point. It just skipped me. It slipped me. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it really was housing and being able to actually push back from the position of the city council, because I think, in the community, we see so many things happening, from the housing issue and concern, also the situation with crime, the situation with the legal, cannabis spots and the illegal ones, which are giving crime. And it just feels like everything is just rolling over. And even the, methadone clinics, like 4 on one block, and people coming from other places. the education system right here in this district, what's happening, a lot of the education is separate but not equal. So how do we really impact these things? Because we got experts, we got a mayor who is from here, grew up here, a person of color, a Black man, our chancellor. How do we really make these changes? Because there's so many things that are happening. How do you feel you can actually get in there and make some shifts?
Well, certainly it's not going to be a one and done and overnight sensation. So for example, I'm just maybe like a block or two from a place here on St. Nicholas where in my first year as a New York State Assembly member, they wanted to open up a methadone clinic. And no one was saying anything. There were a couple of people from the Block Association that brought it to our attention. And I immediately got in touch with the governor's folks and saying, we can't have this here. And aside from saying you don't want to have it here, and there's two parts of it. When you look at the data from New York City, certainly there are a lot of folks that are overdosing in these communities. So it is really real. What I would say on the city level is, why don't we use some of these commercial spots in other communities and open them up and let them come? Because the people in need will come where the services are being offered. And why do we have to be inundated in our community? Whether you're on Lexington, whether you're on Park Avenue, you're getting that bus that's coming off Ward Island. So I know Ward Island, they're coming in and being dropped. So one of the things that myself and I know Senator Cordell Clear have been talking about, and we're still having conversation, is what would it look like? So rather than bring those individuals, because we want to serve, these are our brothers and sisters that need, but why not bring the resources on Ward Island so you're not dropping them there for 12 hours and then picking them back up? Give them the resources that they need, one. Then also, I'm working with HCCI and I'm talking on the state side to put maybe like we're trying to do $250,000. And what will happen is I want to do and I'm getting the okay, so we're rolling it out kind of slow, but there will be a cohort of NYCHA residents that are being trained and given not only a certificate, but an opportunity to be employed. So now they have the ability to clean, they have the ability to probably do abatement where we have lead, and they have the ability to do a few other different things, strictly for those residents in NYCHA, because a lot of the folks there get lost and caught up in the system. I'm not saying that negatively, but it's a reality, and we need to do something about it. So it's going to be a lot of different things to bring it to a boil. But one of the things that I'm happy to have done was bringing resources. So we just I did a $1 million hit to the Herman Denny Farrell River State Bank Park, because we need to be able to go to a park and get the ability to exercise and all of those wonderful things that the facility offers, whether it's taking a swim, whether it's running on a track. All of those things can make a difference. Because remember, when we were talking 3 years ago, people were afraid to go anywhere. And at most, you just see if you could just get out and get some air. So it's a combination of things that we can do, we must do, but it requires collaboration. It requires leveraging the relationships that we have and bringing financial resources. So everybody doesn't want to go to college. Everybody's not college. What are some of the trades and skill sets that we can present them with that help them to become money earners and breadwinners in their families? All of those things together. Safety, again, safety is not going to happen because we're going to legislate our way out of it. We can't police our way out of it. It's going to require some real buy-in. And back to those old school days when I used to come into, because I lived in public housing for a minute, but you had TA presidents and they were respected. And if you came in there, you had to sign in, and you didn't know if that was the worst guy in the neighborhood's mama, but you respected them regardless. And we've lost that. So a lot of stuff I say this with all sincerity, we've lost the reverence of respecting our elders, and we got to bring some of that back. Because and when you talk about cleanliness, my team and I, we were out several times during COVID, just getting rid of trash, bagging it up and moving it, because some people don't think enough about it. But all it takes is a few people to say, you know what? I see the value here. Let's clean up our own neighborhood. And somebody said they're going to make a difference, or they're going to say, well, people get paid to do that. Yeah, they do, but there's something slightly different when you start to do it and own it yourself, and people see it and they start to say, well, you know what, maybe I need to put this in the basket and walk over there. Terry, there's so much that we need to do.
Yeah.
There's so much that can be done, and we got to walk this thing way back. It's not going to happen overnight, but we've fallen further and further behind, I think, on a number of issues. We're not respecting our elders. I think there are opportunities as a pastor, as a clergy, for our clergy to be more engaged in our communities, not just, let me go and get it myself, not just rolling in on Sunday and say, see what I got? No,
Right.
but also I would even say this, we have some bright young people that are still in these churches, and 9 times out of 10, we're walking in as elected officials and we're saying to that clergy, let me get 2 minutes of conversation, and then you don't see me no more. I say to the clergy, hold us accountable. And I also say, look out amongst yourselves and see those bright young people that have come from Bible study and whatever your faith is. You've raised these young people, utilize them because you know who they are. They're trusted. And those can be some of our future leaders. And are we preparing for the next set of leaders?
Okay. Many issues. Rikers Island,
Oh, yes.
cannabis,
Gotta go.
The cannabis. What is your view on this in terms of Harlem and what's happening? Because we know from some of the illegal spots there's been crime. We also know that children are being sold edibles and they're looking like candy. So it's very concerning, particularly in a community that has really suffered, with drugs and mental illness and all these things. And all of this we know comes from disparities. So if you would just speak on that, and then we will go to you and your closing words and, the impact you feel you can have. Thank you.
Well, Terry, thank you. Thank you again, Terry. The illegal versus the legal cannabis facilities. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're still working on the budget. And one of those sticking points is we must, as legislators, make our communities whole. So if I'm only going to get fined, I'm going to think, let's say the number is $500 for the fine. Then I add that as cost of business. And by the time you shut me, I'm back open. We have to make it really difficult and unbearable financially for people to open up these illegal spots and start giving away in or selling product that's not been sanctioned. There are probably 4 at max, as if that many that I'm aware of in New York City, legal cannabis places that have opened. I am against the one that they're opening right now on 125th Street.
Okay.
It's not something that we need at this time. I don't appreciate how it rolled out. This thing was out there in December, and I want to shout out and thank Barbara Atkins, I believe it is, for bid on 125th Street. Harlem bid, because she flagged it. And I was like, whoa, now it's not my physical district, but it impacts and it adds to the overburden of what we currently have. And one of these places or one of the other places, there's always something shady. I'm not saying this place has, and it doesn't have the ability to operate in good standing, but the way they brought it out, Terry, was no one knew about it and is about to put out a banner. How can you bring that to us as elected officials who are so responsible for getting the government back in the first place and not have had the dignity to say, let me talk to these folks over here? And we didn't hear it until the street on the ground. I've been involved in a couple of communications over there with the business owners along the 125 as an elected official, because it's all of Harlem and we see the disparity. We see what's happening in the stores, and we just felt, I believe that this is compounding the issue. So we cannot just open up and say, come on in, do what you want to do. Now, I represent Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood, and it's not restricted to just Harlem. There is a problem. I'm right now trying to remove a vehicle that is selling weed and possibly other stuff to minors.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and the reason I know it is because someone in the community came and pulled my coattail. Again, it's going to get turned around because we have community engagement. There's no way I can see every corner of my district, either the 9th Councilmatic District or the other place. It just won't happen. So until we get to do it together, it's just going to be, well, why is that like that? We have to continue to talk to each other. I would say talk to your elected officials. If you don't want your name on something, drop a piece of paper somewhere with this information. So you can't say we don't want police when at the same time we're unable or unwilling or equipped to go up to somebody that we see every day selling weed to our kids or something illegal. We have to be the voice of the voiceless. So I encourage and solicit everybody to engage the process and not say, well, you know, they ain't never did. What are you doing as your civic engagement to transform your community?
Yeah, thank you for that, Reverend Al Taylor. And I had to raise the issue of the cannabis at the illegal shops. We've had 2 murders,
Yes.
probably within a month, and
Yes.
it's just overwhelming. And the 125th Street Bridge, did not want, the community did not want. And it came back, I believe, through Governor Hochul saying, well, the lease was already signed and money had been spent. But we don't care about that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We don't care about that. Pay them off. It's government money anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very concerning because we're being
disrespectful.
Yeah, and it's concerning that our community is being rolled over. And I guess that's the bottom question as public officials with the community behind you. How can we push back on these things? A lot of these things are just, as our grandparents would say, common sense. You know what I'm saying? There's no common sense to do something like that in our community, but it feels like we're being rolled over.
Absolutely. So Terry, I just want to share this. I know we're going to wrap up.
Yes, absolutely.
There was the shooting, the horrific shooting in that smoke shop, and he was associated with another murder. That individual should never have been on the streets. He was previously in a shootout where he fired at cops. He sustained gunshot wounds. The judge allowed that individual back on the streets without bail. What we passed in Albany, when everybody's yelling about bail reform and we've messed it up, and the judges are saying, or the political people are saying in the news that judges have no discretion. That judge had the discretion to set a bail and remand that person because they wouldn't have been able to pay it in all probability. And those 2 lives would still be here. I stand by that. They have discretion and they need to do better with what they have and stop looking to make a political statement in everything they do. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We have many issues on the table. We're working on some issues with the Liberian mural that is in Harlem Hospital, and we're reaching out to the public officials for support, the homelessness, the social service, the loss of housing. All of these things are on the table, and we want our public officials to really take a stand, really push back, and not for Harlem, Inwood, all the Black and brown communities to be rolled over. So that's what we're looking at. We thank you for coming on to Harlem Network News, and stand strong, and prayers for the homegoing of your father. And
Thank you, Terry.
A warrior to be out here still doing the work. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so have a blessed and prosperous day, and we will look at the forum that goes on and move forward ever, backward never. This is Harlem Network. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all of those, and our regular shows air at 4 every Sunday on our YouTube channel, but you can always catch it and pick it up. And we encourage you to donate to Harlem Network News. If you have news and information, please share it with us. harlemnetworknews@gmail.com or 646-261-5397. Another area, as I'm saying it, about Harlem Network News is small businesses. There's been a great loss of small businesses, particularly small businesses for Black people. So we've got to look at what that's about, why that's happening, and small businesses are the lifeline. So it's very important that every color be able to participate in it, but that there not be disparities, particularly for the Black businesses. So thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Have a blessed day. We appreciate you taking the time. Harlem
Thank
Network News. Thank you.